Hello everyone, and welcome to JSlice Audio, a new YouTube channel of mine that I've created recently to demonstrate how I create retro-sounding FM synthesis music utilizing my computer. And one of the ways I do that is by using this program here called Furnace. I'm going to go ahead and open it up real quick and show you guys what this is all about. Now, Furnace is a type of mod tracking software, which is a program that can run on basically any type of computer that you can think of, which will allow you to type in codes or commands line by line, which will help you basically create any single type of retro-sounding FM synthesis chip and allow you to compose your own music. Now, as I mentioned previously, Furnace is a type of software that can run on any type of computer or operating system that you may have. I want to talk about my particular setup here real quick, so I want to show you guys my computer here. So this is a custom-built gaming PC that I put together in 2025, and it features a lot of high-end components meant for gaming and running complex driving simulator programs, as well as some 3D CAD rendering. But you don't necessarily need to have this powerful of a PC to run this type of program. More or less, what you need to have is a CPU with 2 cores or more, recommended system RAM of anywhere from 8 to 16 gigabytes, and a rather decent GPU with anything more than 8 gigabytes of RAM. The reason why is because Furnace uses a lot of hardware-based acceleration and rendering features that your PC will have to help with some of the rendering of the compression and the sampling of various different types of FM chips. So, again, while my system here is rather overkill for something like this, again, it just goes to show that you could literally run this on any type of system that you have. It could be like a small little PC like this, although this is just a hard drive. It could even be something like this here, like your generic 10-year-old or older type of desktop computer. Or it can even be like a small laptop or one of those all-in-one desktop computers where it's all built into the monitor. Anything more than a dual-core CPU, 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, and a rather decent GPU is what you'll need in order to make best use of this program. And the reason why you need rather decent hardware to do all this stuff is because if you, say, don't have like a GPU or your CPU is a bit slow, it can start to become quite challenging to render all of this stuff to make it sound as accurate as possible to the original sound chip. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the program and how I use the program. So the first thing that you would do is, so right now I have basically what is an open project. What you would do is you would first go up here and click New to start a new project, and then the first thing you do is you go up to the Instrument tab and you add an instrument. Now what I usually like to do is I add about 1, 2, up to 5 different FM instruments like this. And you could have as many types of instruments as you want. I don't think it limits you, but... And then the next thing you do is you go and add a couple of 8-bit channels, for 8-bit instruments for the 8-bit channels that you have. Now you really only need 2 8-bit instruments, but you could have, again, as many instruments as you want per type of sound chip. So now we have instruments for the FM side and instruments for the square wave side. So that's basically how you would start a new project on Furnace. But to demonstrate something that I've actually made with the program. We're going to go ahead and open up one of my older projects here that I've made, which is supposed to be a cover of Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer. So we're going to go ahead and open that. And as you can see, so I have instruments here in the instrument tab. And then here, you'll see that I have typed in various different notes. So the notes are actually just you type in notes here utilizing your keyboard, and basically, so the first thing you'll notice is that each of these lines here is spaced out according to how it would be in a measure of a song. So, for example, this blue bar here is the start of a first measure, and then this would be like measure 1, measure 2, measure 3, and then measure 4 for the 4/4 time signature. So, if you go up here to the speed section, you can actually modify all of these values to make it, so for example, if you wanted to be a 6/8, you would do that up here, but the one I mainly mess with, because again, I mainly do 4/4 measure just to make it a little bit easier. But the one thing I do mess with in this section a lot is the tempo. So to raise or lower the tempo, you would just go plus or minus here. Or you could also just highlight it and type in the number. So the Living on a Prayer song is set to 120 beats per minute. So that right there is how you would set the speed or tempo. Now, as you'll see, I have notes typed in, but the first thing you do, you don't necessarily want to go clicking here and typing in notes, because it won't be assigned to a particular instrument. So the first thing you would do if you were typing notes in is you would go up here and click what type of instrument you have. Again, if you don't have an instrument for whatever particular channel, so each of these columns here correspond to a channel. So a channel, like we have channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for the FM, and then your 3 8-bit channels and the noise. Now, I don't really use the noise channel very much because the FM chip itself is actually very capable and very dynamic, as we'll talk about later with this section right here. But the reason why I don't use the noise is because to replicate drum sounds or noise sounds, you would actually do a much better job of making a drum track, for example, by using the FM channels, as opposed to using the noise, because it's very hard to make it sound good, because otherwise it'll make it sound like an air balloon or something. Like it's very difficult to make it sound good with the rest of the song. But nevertheless, it can be used. I just choose not to use it. But anyways, so again, you would go up here and click your instrument, and then say if you wanted to type some notes in this particular channel here, the first thing you do is hit the space bar, and as you can see, your line that you have, your selected line there becomes red. That lets you know that you can type in notes and make changes. And we can go ahead and just start typing. And then the next one is on the... So the way the keyboard layout is, you have basically these here like your lower octave, and then you also have a higher octave up here. And then spaced out according to how it would be on a piano keyboard, you'll have the flat notes, which will be the next key up. Now, as you can see, they're all in the regular type of music scale, the C scale. But anyways, to delete notes, you would just push the backspace key. And then, so I want to go ahead and show you here what I have made here in this section real quick. So that right there is the opening lead portion. Now, these keys up here I want to talk about because I originally made kind of a brief introduction to this a while ago, but I made a lot of mistakes in that video, so I wanted to go ahead and make a bit of a more comprehensive one. And I did leave out these particular details here. So, Furnace has play. This is play from the beginning of this pattern. So, say if you are on this particular slide here, and you didn't want to go all the way back to the beginning of the song, you would just push that and it would take you directly to the top, as opposed to just going up to the top and playing it from the beginning. But anyways, so you have play from the beginning, and then this one here is your repeat from the beginning of this pattern. So again, if you just wanted it to loop back and then play, that would be a very easy way to do that. I don't really use this button very much, but it's stop one row below whatever is selected. This is just your edit, so basically if you don't want to push the space bar, you could just manually come up here and click this, and that will allow you to basically edit the track and make changes to it. This right here is your metronome, which you can use to help if, say, you don't have drums playing at the moment. It just basically gives you a beat so that you can help create a melody, for example, without needing drums. And then this one right here, that's the one I use a lot because it really does help with how to make changes and edits to various songs. That is essentially your repeat. So if I'm working on this slide right here, and say I just want this melody to keep playing over and over again so I can just listen to it, make sure it sounds good, I would just do this without it starting the music part. So that right there again is the main melody for the Living on a Prayer song. And I just have those notes playing and nothing to interrupt it. Now, if I wanted to make those notes stop at a certain point, what I would do is, say if I wanted to just stop halfway, I'd basically select the middle portion, and then on my keyboard I'd push the number 1 button. And that would put an off. That is basically like a rest, so that it stops the note from playing. I think it would be better if I did if I put an off here so you guys could hear better. So you could kind of make it fade out, because most of these FM sounds, you can basically make changes to it, which we'll talk later when we talk about the wavetable. But you could either make an FM instrument gradually fade out, or you could just make it abruptly cut, depending on what you have the volume selection set to, which is this right here. If I wanted to just make it die off, I would basically just leave 1/ unoccupied. So right here, this is the bass guitar, which will come up later in the song. And if I just wanted to make it abruptly cut, I would just do something like that. Now, if I wanted to revert this back to what it was set to before, I'd just go on my keyboard and push Control-Z over and over again. And then you could do that. So the way that works is you could, if you were typing in notes and you just wanted to go back, you could do Control-Z, and it would basically revert you back to the beginning. Or you could click this area here. Notice that the red bar is gone, and then you could do the same thing to make the volume go back to how it was before. So again, I'm going to go ahead and play this song here, and we'll go to the next slide. that right there is the bass guitar. And what I'm about to do here is I'm going to shut these tracks off. So by clicking the top here, where it says FM3 and FM4, if you click these, you can manually turn off each individual channel to help you better compose and get a better idea. If, say, you're working on the bass guitar section, you could just have that one channel playing so that you could just listen to just that channel. And you could see here, that's kind of sort of how I have it set up. Go ahead and just continue the song. This right here, what I have typed in FM2 is the little hi-hat bell piece that plays in the background of the song. And the way I did that was by utilizing instrument number 1, which is a sound called an abduction sound. So I want to go ahead and talk about the built-in sounds. So when you download Furnace off the internet, you go into the main file folder here, and you have built-in instrument samples that you can, say, go into. You'll want to go to the OPN section if you were using the Sega Genesis style Yamaha YM2612 chip, or even if you were doing an ad-lib or YM3812 style sound, you would go into this section here, and you have like accordion, bass, drums, percussion, etc. So we'll go into the bass section here just to demonstrate, and you have a plethora of different preloaded sounds in case you didn't want to tune each individual instrument, which is something we'll talk about here shortly. So again, if you were just in a rush to compose something, you could come up here and click the sound and be done with it. But so that right there is a modified version of this built-in abduction sound. Now, I should mention that each of these instruments, otherwise, say if you did not want to utilize the built-in sounds, they all have to be individually tuned and adjusted to make the right sound. So let's say if you didn't want to make a custom or utilize the built-in sounds of Furnace, what you would do instead is you would go to the wavetable section here, and inside of the wavetable is what is essentially a full-fledged synthesizer. It gives you all the adjustability that you would have on a real dedicated synthesizer. So the way this sound chip works here is you have 4 different operators. So you have operator 1, 2, 3, and 4. Some other sound chips will have way more operators than this. But the one in the Sega Genesis here has 4. And the way these all work is all of these operators are essentially like a small piece of the sound that you hear. So if I just go ahead and manually demonstrate this by clicking the wavetable, making sure it's selected, and then going on my keyboard and typing some notes. So that right there is basically like a hodgepodge of various different types of sounds coming together, and the way you would adjust it is first by tuning the attack, decay, sustain. This one right here is a secondary decay, as well as the release. Now, I did talk about the release a little bit earlier. You could do it by adjusting the volume section like I was talking about, or you could also naturally make the instrument die out in sound by turning that all the way up to the bottom. So 15 would be like maximum release, meaning that it would die out immediately. Or if you wanted it to kind of play out a little bit, you would just go up to, you would just put the release all the way up. So by manually adjusting all of these sliders, you can basically take full control of each individual sound. Now you also have here the wave section here. This is only meant to be done for certain types of sounds that utilize oscillation, and you would control that by highlighting this check mark here. Now this particular sound uses quite a bit of oscillation, and it uses the down and up style wave. Now you have multiple different options. You could go down, 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 just straight down, and then down, up, the previous down and then straight up, and then just plain up, then straight down, and then up, down. And all of these create a different type of oscillation sound. But the one that was meant for this particular sound, again, this is more or less trying to create like a bell sound, so this would be best suited for this particular instrument here. Now, these sliders here, this is the TL, or basically like a volume slider. So if you wanted to, if say this particular operator's sound was making too loud of a sound, you would turn this slider all the way, you would turn it down accordingly when the volume of the operator was best for the music. Again, you also don't want all of these to be up, because it can create quite a cacophony of sound. It won't particularly sound very good if all of these are turned up. So a common practice is to just kind of limit the sound a little bit by turning one of these down or playing with the values to not make the volume so loud. So again, this here is set up perfectly to make our bell sound, which we'll go ahead and play again. So that right there kind of explains a little bit about how to tune each instrument. Then, again, what I mentioned here before is your volume. That is the second most important thing about tuning an instrument, because you don't want the volume to be blasting too much, because otherwise, when you have various different channels going at once, that particular one will just be so loud, and it would take over the entire piece, basically, to the point to where it will start to kind of make the others a lot more quiet in comparison. So we'll adjust the volume like this to make it so that it just kind of goes up and down kind of gradually, like a typical bell sound would. And that right there is set up perfectly for a bell. If we, say, want to check out what the acoustic bass is doing, we'll select the acoustic bass, and then that one just kind of gradually fades, but starts out very full. And then if we look at our wavetable section, it's what I would consider to be rather basic. Like, we don't have any major effects going on. All of these are pretty much set up as how they would be. The multiplier is also something. So multipliers, again, you could double, triple, or vice versa, however many times is necessary. You could add to the waveform to basically, it's like a shortcut, sort of, to increase the octave of that particular operator's waveform. So, for example, if you wanted to have like a chord playing in one channel, you would adjust you would adjust these multipliers here to be half of each other, so to make kind of an octave chord or something like that. But the bass guitar here is pretty simple, and this is what it sounds like. And it again, that punch that you hear is just the attack on all of these being set extremely high, which is important for a picked type of instrument to really make it sound like it's an actual bass guitar. Alrighty, so I've talked a bit about how the wavetable works, and I've talked about how to type in notes and select instruments. But another thing I want to talk about the wavetable here real quick before we move on to the rest of the piece that I have made is I want to bring your attention to this area up here, which is just more synthesizer stuff to adjust. So you have feedback here, which basically just adds like a gritty texture to whatever sound you're making. You have an LFO adjustment here. You can do LFO is greater than amp or LFO is greater than frequency. And if you were to turn the LFO is greater to frequency all the way to the max, basically what that does is kind of make it tremble. It kind of gives it kind of a ghost or spooky type vibe to it. So that might be useful for like a Halloween piece or something. But now I want to talk about the algorithm part. Now the algorithm is one of the most important things about tuning an instrument because the sound chip here can do multiple different types of algorithms, which basically allow you to adjust how the sound chip produces sound. So we have 0, which is how our bass guitar works. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have up to 7 different types of algorithms. And they all do different things. 0 is essentially each of these are basically playing an individual sound, but number 4 kind of acts as kind of a mask on all of them. So it will play like a soft sound over all of these, but each of these does not affect the other's sound. So that would be, again, most ideal for creating a bass type instrument, or more importantly, one that's played on a stringed bass instrument. One mix number 4 control number 3, and number 3 has direct control over number 1 and 2. So if I adjust something on operator 1, you may hear a slight change in the sound, but it won't affect operator 2 or 3. You will still be able to hear them. But operator 4 controls all of them. So if you adjust something on operator 4, it will play on all of these, but it won't. But say operator 3 won't affect operator 4. None of these really touch operator 4. So this is algorithm 2. And it makes number 4 control 1 and 3 directly, but number 2 is directly controlled by number 3. So if you adjust something on operator 4, it will affect 1 and 3. It won't really affect this, number 2. But if you adjust something on number 3, it will definitely affect number 2. And this is algorithm 3. It makes operator 4, again, still the master here. It will directly control number 2 and 3, and then operator 1 is controlled by number 2. So again, if you change something on operator 1, it really won't affect much. It's just a small portion of the sound, but operator 2, since it's controlled by number 4, operator 2 will directly affect number 1. But number 3 here, as you can see by the diagram, is its completely own separate sound. So again, operator 3 is kind of its own thing. It won't really affect operator 4 that much. So none of these here touch operator 4, but 2 and 3 are directly controlled by operator 4. So if you adjust operator 4, it will sort of kind of adjust operator 3, but you will still be able to hear 1 and 2 over 3. And then this one here is something that I've used quite a bit on the bass section. This is algorithm 4, which makes 2 and 4 control 1 and 3. This is the most common type of algorithm that I'll use to make something kind of wobble or kind of give it a real synthesizer sound to it. Now, again, the way this particular algorithm is set up is you'll have 2 and 4 controlling 1 and 3, but operator 1 is only responding to operator 2, and operator 3 is only responding to number 4. So operator 3 won't touch number 2, operator 1 won't touch number 4. So both operator 2 and 4 in this particular instance are basically just 2 masters. And what's cool is the sound chip, since it's meant to be in stereo, which we'll talk about here shortly, when you add stereo separation to this, operator 2 will be its own channel of stereo, and operator 4 will be the other corresponding channel of stereo. And now I just want to go ahead and show you some of the extra algorithms that I will only seldomly use, but doesn't necessarily mean I won't use them. This is algorithm number 5. 2, 3, and 4 are masters here. So 2, 3, and 4 are their own thing. They do not touch each other. But all of these will affect number 1. Number 1 does not affect any of the others. And then number 6 is essentially the same thing, except 1 is directly linked to 2. So that means 2 and 1 are linked, but 2, 3, and 4 still are masters. So again, 3 and 4 will do their own thing. They will not adjust 1, but again, if something is done on 2, it will directly affect 1. And 1 won't really touch 3 and 4, but will sort of kind of have an effect on 2. Alright, welcome to the algorithm that requires the least amount of explanation. And that's because all 4 operators make their own sound and do not have anything to do with each other. That's right. All of these can do their own thing and they won't affect each other. Alright, so now with the algorithms and pretty much most of the wavetable section taken care of, now I want to show you a little bit more closely how notes are typed in to the tracker. Now I mentioned that we have this little off section. We have the actual note itself, which starts off with a letter here corresponding to the actual note, E, F, etc., like what you would type on your keyboard, piano, or any type of musical instrument. And then the next number is the octave, so we are on octave 3, these are on octave 2, and you would adjust the octave by simply coming up here, either typing in a number or using the plus and minus. You can also use keyboard shortcuts, but essentially that's in short how you would adjust the octave. And then you'll see the blue number directly next to the note is your instrument number, which corresponds with whatever instruments you have selected on this list here. So number 1 again is that bell sound, which we'll play here, and then number 2 is the sawtooth, kind of a that's basically the lead melody part, and then the drums will come in later, but those will be all 4, 5, and 6 basically, and number 3 is the acoustic bass. So now that we know how to read the notes on the tracker, something I want to make very clear is these notes here, as you'll see, are spaced out perfectly to how they would be in the Living on a Prayer song, which is what I have created here. So the original Living on a Prayer song has a very unique style of drum beat, which we're going to go ahead and select the next slide. The drum beat is 1-1-2-1-1-2, which I have spaced out accordingly. And we'll see here is the start of the drum sequence, which again is like a opening to the drum case. And then we actually get to the actual 1-1-2 part. So we're going to go ahead and select the drum section and then start playing it. So as you can see by the way it's scrolling, it actually does play in sequence with how it's actually typed in. It's very similar to a player piano, the way this interface works. So again, if you type in a note here, it's going to start playing a note in that section, and it's probably not going to sound very good. But anyways, the all of these notes have to be spaced out in such a way that it actually corresponds to a particular rhythm that you're going for. So you can't just go typing in notes and expecting it to all be in sequence, because especially when you start copying and pasting things, it won't necessarily apply it perfectly on beat. And then you'll have to go in and make a bunch of changes, but essentially, so you have to tune the instruments, you have to type in the notes and make sure that they're spaced out correctly, and then we'll talk about some effects, which we'll delve into the bass section here shortly. Now this is the bass section of the Living on a Prayer song, and in the actual song, they use a kind of talk box, or kind of with a kind of a wavy effect to it, almost like a wah pedal. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this here and let you guys hear it. I've decided to recreate it as close to the original song as I possibly can. And I really did want to make it sound kind of like a real synthesizer with its kind of wavy, with the waviness to it. So I mentioned how when I was talking about one of the algorithms here, that one of them had 2 different masters, and one of the capabilities it can have is it can make one of the masters the left channel and one of the masters the right channel. So now I'm going to go ahead and talk about stereo separation, which you'll see here are these blue numbers. Now I have here typed in 80-0, 80-80, and 80FF. What those numbers mean is 80-0 refers to the left channel only, 80-80 refers to both of them at the same time, and 80FF refers to the right channel. So by just typing in any combination of those, you can make the sound of that particular channel bounce back and forth between the left and right speakers, or if you want them to go back to playing on both at the same time. So that's kind of sort of what I did here to kind of make it modulate similarly to how it would be in the song. But you might not be able to hear this very well due to the sound coming out of my soundbar, but if you were to wear headphones wearing this, listening to this particular channel, it would literally sound like it's going back and forth, since I have the sound basically just going left, center, right, center, left. But you could basically do any number of these things, depending on how you have it coded in. And that right there is how you would code it in, just by typing 8080. And then if you're familiar with hexadecimal code, so FF would be basically as far right as it can go. But you can also do a range. So say if you didn't want it to go completely to the left side, you could, instead of typing 00, you can do like 8010, 8020, 8030 to kind of make it a little less far over to the left or right as you wanted it to. It just depends on how you wanted to make the sound. You could also do something where it will do stereo interpolation, where it will just repeatedly go back and forth over and over again. But that right there is how you would type it in. Now, I'd also like to draw your attention to these numbers that I have typed in here. These are numbers that control the volume of the particular sound, and what I decided to do for this particular section, since originally it would have the melody playing here, these notes here control volume, and when you have notes typed in, and say they just are continuously playing, there's no cut in volume, there's no effect to make it just die out in sound immediately, what you do is you type in these numbers here, and it will gradually fade out the sound, and then obviously I have a rest here to completely kill it. Basically what that does is it just kind of gradually fades out the volume, and as opposed to just completely cutting off the sound, to make it a little bit more accurate to the original song. So now I've talked a bit about how the sound is how these notes and everything are typed in. Now I actually want to go ahead and play this from top to bottom so you guys can hear exactly what this all sounds like when played. So that's basically what I was able to compose within about an hour and a half period of just going to town, typing all of this in, adjusting all of this, and implementing the right instruments and spacing it all out. all of those things to basically make it as true to the original soundtrack as possible. Something I'd also want to mention real quick is something here where I've basically gone and repurposed one of the tracks that was meant for the lead, and I chose to add in a section here where it emphasizes the wobbly bass section to kind of really bring it together to sound as close to the talkbox style sound that was prevalent on the original song. Now, obviously, this sound chip is not capable of actually producing talkbox vocals, so what I decided to do is I repurposed by utilizing the slide table up here. So I'll talk about this real quick. So the way all of this works is you have a table here where you can add multiple different slides. So rather than just having one section loop over and over again, to make an actual composition, what you would do is you would add multiple different slides here, where you will have a section of notes that has already been typed, and then say if you wanted to switch out some of these or turn off a section of notes and just have a small portion of the notes playing, you could basically just type in different codes up here to turn on and off or select a different type of note pattern. And so that's precisely what I did here. So as you can see, number 3 and 4, channels number 3 and number 4 were used for the melody, aka the sawtooth part. And then what I've done is completely turn off one of them, and also made this one just die off and completely stop producing sound. And I have made the third channel here act as kind of a low, gritty bass sound that also does have kind of a wobble effect to it. So when both of these are played together, it will basically sound like this is meant to be like a mimicked version of the talkbox part. So in the same areas in the original song where you would have heard the original talkbox portion, that is precisely what I have decided to replicate here. So we'll play this by itself here so you can hear more closely. And again, I also made it bounce back and forth. Now we'll add the main bass. We'll add the bass guitar now. And now you can really start to see how they all come together. So that's one of the ways you can make a section of notes that really sound convincing, as if it was actually produced on that particular FM chip. But another thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the 8-bit section that I have. Now, in this particular song, I have decided to use the 8-bit as kind of a stand-in for the actual sung voice part, the vocals, if you will, of the original song. Now, again, as I mentioned, this sound chip, and most like it, are completely incapable of producing actual vocals. However, if you were extremely talented back in the day, if you were messing around with one of these, you could do something called PCM sampling, which I have yet to actually do. It's very complicated, but this program actually does let you do some PCM sampling. It's just not something that I particularly delved into that much. So what I've done instead is use the 8-bit section here to act as the main vocals. Now, the sound of the 8-bits here is something I wanted to mention real quick and highlight, because when you produce an actual 8-bit sound, it's not it's typically going to be a flat 8-bit sound. It's not going to have like the wavy thing that I was doing. So I want to talk about arpeggios real quick, because it's a main component of how I've done the 8-bit section of this particular song. So arpeggio is essentially a rapid shift up and down an octave repeatedly, and this is oftentimes what you'll hear in various different 8-bit sounds, and is no exception here for what I've done with the vocals. So, other than it sounding basically like an old arcade, the reason why this is done is because if I was to just produce a flat-sounding 8-bit, which I can do by simply making another instrument here and demonstrating, it would sound more like this. And it would not particularly, it would more or less just sound very tinny, and it would be, in my opinion, rather annoying to have that constantly playing. So I've decided to add a little bit more pizzazz to it, if you will, by incorporating some arpeggio to kind of make it a little bit more pleasant to hear. So that's more or less how the 8-bit is done in this particular piece, and that is something that I first learned how to master back when I used to mess around with these in high school. I first started messing with 8-bit Modtrackers, and then I gradually progressed to something a little bit more advanced like what you see here. So that in all is the majority of how I compose music using Furnace. And if you're interested in hearing music produced by this software, I'm going to be posting videos where I'll screenshot my computer and have the tracker playing so that you guys have something to watch, and you guys will be able to see line by line how I compose the entire song. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.